welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about a Warlock build that pretty much means you don't ever have to fire a gun for most content in this game, because you are just going to solely rely on your arc buddy and your solar buddy. Now there's a lot of different variations of this build, some with an incredible amount of things like stasis turrets and no time to explain, but I just think they're pretty pointless because you only particularly need these two extra buddies more than anything. So let's get into it. So you can use pretty much any super you want. I use the Song of Flame just because it's broken in my opinion. I don't believe anything in the super decision actually affects the build, but I go with Song of Flame just because it's fun and new and different and broken. Then we have Phoenix Dive. The base cooldown for this is shorter, and it's also just an easier way to get out anything that you need to get out, including the Hellion aspect. And the Hellion aspect is basically a little solar mortar who sits on your shoulder and fires big homing missiles at enemies, and the more you hit the same enemy with the same attack, it will stack up and then blow up in terms of a scorch ignition and do incredible amounts of damage. Next to that little solar buddy, you're going to have your arc buddy through your storm grenade and also your exotic gauntlets. Now the storm grenade, you're going to get it back so quickly that you could even throw it out as a normal grenade and then also get your grenade back before your arc soul runs out to get another arc soul. So these other grenades not really worth it. Then we have the arcane needle, good to put darkness debuff onto enemies, which will tie into one of our fragments, but also as well you're going to be mostly at range anyway due to the fact that you are using your buddies for anything, so it's just an easier way to get some extra damage onto enemies. So we're going to go with Feed the Void next to the Hellion. So defeat a target with any ability to activate Devour. This means Devour is going to be up constantly. You are never going to be without Devour. A lot of people here like to go with the stasis turret, which you're free to do, but in my opinion it's just not as efficient. And then with Devour you just constantly just healing and constantly just being invincible while doing incredible amounts of damage. That would be my recommendation. For the fragments, your Void Grenade weakens targets and your Arc Grenades jolts targets. You can be using your Arc Buddy and Arc Grenades, so it's just an extra little thing you can throw on to debuff the enemy. Then we have the Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc, Solar or Void buff, ability final blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. So you're going to be throwing out those melees, you're going to be using your grenades, and you are constantly going to have an Arc, Solar or Void buff, because every single time you pop your arc buddy you get amplified, so you will constantly be doing and getting more Darkness Transcendence energy, which means you can use your Transcendence more. On top of that as well, Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, which you always will do, your class ability regenerates more quickly. This is so you can get your solar buddy out as often as possible, because it's not as infinite as it is for the arc soul. You'll be a little bit behind every single time you use the Hellion, but with the right build you'll be able to get it up there. Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. You're not going to be doing too much darkness damage unless you're using specific weapons, but this is just an extra little thing for you to get your melee back so that you can use your dark debuffs with your arcane needle. It's quite cyclical, but just not as broken as you would want it to be. But you know, who wants a completely broken build? Everybody. Then I go with Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuff. So if you're hitting people with that arcane needle and putting a debuff on them, then your grenades hitting them is going to be doing more damage, and you'll constantly have that Arc Soul up. Now when it comes to the stats, Resilience obviously very important. The discipline stat, not really needed. Unfortunately, most of my armor is just tied to discipline. You want to get as much recovery as possible so that you get your class ability back quicker, which means you can get your Hellion out more. But I've never had trouble with getting the Hellion out that often, even with a lower recovery. So if you can get double hundreds in resilience and recovery and a little bit less in discipline, you're gonna be thriving. This is what I set up with, and I've never really had much trouble with it. I just have a lot of discipline based gear, so I'm stuck with high discipline right now, but I am working on getting more recovery based gear. Then we have the Getaway Artist. Consuming your arc grenade grants an arc soul and amplifies you. That's exactly what this whole build is built around, so you really want to be using this. Then for me, on my helmet, because I do need that extra recovery in terms of mods, I have 1 Ashes to Assets and 1 Strand Siphon. I'm using strand weapons when I'm not using my arc buddies and stuff, but if you can just consistently have Ashes to Assets, have 3 of them if you can afford it, because that will give you super as you're killing with your little arc soul. On the gauntlets, I have Bolstering Detonation, grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. Same with the melee attack, you're going to be throwing out hopefully 3 of them at a time. And then also as well, firepower, your grenade final blows create an orb of power. Now this doesn't work solely with the arc soul itself, but if you pop your arc soul and get it back instantly, you can throw out your storm grenade to do extra damage and still get your arc soul back again before your one runs out. So that extra grenade that you can throw out can pop an orb. You can swap this to anything you want. I've just tried it out and been a bit experimental, and it does kind of work. Any resistances that you need on the chest piece, up to you. And then for the boots, I have Absolution, reduces all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an orb of power. So any orbs generated by teammates, because this is not an orb making build other than that grenade that we can throw out, you get all of your cooldowns cooled down, and then also one for grenade cooldown and one for melee cooldown. But you are not truly looking to build up orbs for this build. It all works without orbs, but any orbs that you can get, you know, you want to get your abilities back a little bit. And then for the class item, we have Reaper. Shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. Now you're going to be constantly putting out that Hellion as often as you can. So as soon as you pop it and you get your Hellion, you want to shoot something, you'll get an orb of power. So there will be some orbs, not particularly a lot, but there will be some orbs. And then reduce grenade cooldown when using your class ability, and reduce melee cooldown when using your class ability. Again, we're going to be using it often, so you get a little bit of chunk of energy for both grenade and melee. You can switch this to be both melees or both grenades, completely up to you, or extras if you don't need to have too many mods for recovery and resilience and stuff like that. So I took this build through many different iterations of the game, but the best way for me to actually showcase this is in Onslaught, because I feel like that's a decent mode to test out just run-of-the-mill builds that you'll use every single day. Nothing of these like big, massive, huge damage ones. It's like a good, solid build that you're going to be using. Onslaught for me is the great way to test it, because when you do get enemies, you get waves and waves and waves of them, so you can see how effective it is to use this build. But then you get little gaps in time where you have to wait for more enemies to spawn, and you'd think that that would mess up the rotation, but you can see that in that small period of time when you're waiting for more enemies to come in, because of your natural discipline and your natural recovery, you're going to get both your Hellion and Arc Soul back before you engage in the next fight. And you can see in the footage in the background that for probably 98% of this game of Onslaught, I didn't even fire my gun. I didn't even utilize the orbs of powers and all the things that will help you get your abilities back quicker and stuff like that. I was literally just using the Art Buddy and Hellion, and it was just absolutely annihilating everything. And where this build kind of really shines is if you are using your weapons as well as using your Arc Soul and your Hellion, make sure you're allowing your Arc Soul to get recharged before you kill all your enemies. However, most likely you're going to get it back anyway, because it gets back really quickly. If you're using your weapons too, like I use the Call, which is a little bit of an AoE splash damage type weapon, as well as the No Hesitations, which has Scorch and Ignitions. And then for any kind of boss damage I need to do, I have an LMG with Bait and Switch and Envious Assassin. You know, it's not the most damage I can do, but it's just something that I love using. I don't even have unraveling rounds on this build, but it still does incredible damage. You're going to have a build which is just all about crowd control and wiping out whole bunches of enemies at a time very, very easily. Very trivial, very brain dead kind of build. And honestly, it's starting to become my favorite build, because I was using my invincible healing grenade turret build, which is just very easy and very boring to play, but it was just the easiest way for me to play as a solo player. I'm now actually loving this build more because it gets me involved more. There's different abilities that I never used before, not really anyway, so I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I implore anybody watching this video with a Warlock who can make this build to try it out, because it is just incredibly fun and hilarious as well when you don't even have to move or do anything and your little buddies are just killing everything. It's amazing. Now, as I said, there's other builds similar to this where they'll sacrifice the Devour that keeps you just invincible to have the stasis turret. That to me is an okay build, but the stasis turret sometimes just feels completely useless, because you throw it out as you charge up your Arc Soul and you can't really place where it lands, not truly really. So sometimes it'll get stuck in an awkward position, but also as well, because of how slow it fires and the projectiles take a while to reach the enemy, your Arc Soul and Hellion will kill that enemy before the stasis turret even gets anywhere close to that enemy. So it just feels pointless. It feels more like a gimmick just to have so many things out like you're throwing out when you charge up your grenade. And then on top of that as well, the no time to explain. Incredible weapon. For me, just not my type of weapon, not my type of play style. So I am very happy with sacrificing the no time to explain, but you can also use that as well and get a kinetic buddy. It's just not needed though. It's not needed. It's a gimmick as well. Make sure you're trying this out. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. If you have any other builds for any class that you are having fun with that aren't the quote-unquote meta, let me know the build down below. Pass me the dim link. Tell me what fragments and stuff you use, and I will try them out too, because I'm trying to find as many fun things to do in this game until the next part of the season pass starts, and then we get new stuff. Thank you for watching. I've been easy. I know you guys have been awesome.